In Melbourne this morning, Joan Kirner is about to be sworn in as Victoria's first woman Premier, but she's already caused a political storm by scrapping the government's pledge not to raise gas, power and water rates.
Joan Kirner and her deputy Jeff Kennett's first function was a relaxing breakfast at the Regent Hotel in Melbourne. Mrs Kirner had other things on her mind than the appointment with the governor.
I refuse even for you to have a sticky croissant.
But she is in a mess over comments made after her victory yesterday that the government would review charges for essential services like gas and power, despite Labor's election pledge not to do so.
Yes, that's right. It was a key pledge and it's certainly very hard to move away from. But times have changed.
And if Mrs Kirner thinks she can come in and on day one just walk away on the promises they made and were elected just over 18 months ago, she's got another thing coming.
Mrs Kirner has put that behind her for the moment. She arrived at Government House a short time ago to be officially sworn in as Victoria's first woman Premier. The former school teacher says she only ever wanted to be a good education minister. Now she's been given the chance to teach all Victorian politicians a lesson in leadership. Steve Kerry, 11am.
Costello called Kevin Rudd arrogant, said he thought he had this election in the bag, and was, quite critical of Kevin Rudd's arrogance this morning. Now, whether Kevin Rudd is arrogant or not, he clearly does have his fans. We know the polls are pretty good for the opposition leader, but John, today the new Queensland Premier Anna Bligh was on one of those morning FM radio stations where they spin the wheel of embarrassing questions, and her question was, who would you rather kiss, Kevin Rudd or John Howard? And the new Queensland Premier said by far Kevin Rudd with a lot of tongue. There you go.
Oh dear.
Okay.
I don't think I want to know that.
No, I didn't want to know that. I got a bit of a shock.
There you go.
Okay, moving right along.
Queensland Health has been forced to apologise after releasing a patient's confidential medical records without his permission. The highly sensitive information was given to a large firm of lawyers fighting a compensation claim by the man's wife. The state's health minister doesn't know how many other people have been victims of similar privacy breaches.
6 years ago, Pam Lockwood launched a legal battle with Queensland Health over the PA Hospital's alleged failure to correctly diagnose and treat her for a serious illness. As part of that case, and without her husband Peter's knowledge, the Health Department handed over his confidential medical records to their own law firm, Minter Ellison.
I felt, if you could say, psychologically raped. I felt absolutely humiliated.
Mr Lockwood says it appeared his file had been accessed to try and dig up dirt and discredit us.
I was horrified. My wife was horrified. I felt my whole rights were taken away.
So for the past 2 years, he's waged a war with Queensland Health demanding answers. He was repeatedly told the department had acted within the law.
They really felt that they were invincible. They could just do anything and would get away with it.
But after years of denying any wrongdoing, a letter appeared in July in which Health Department Director General Uschi Schreiber confessed the Queensland Health Officer was not legally authorised to release your medical records to Minter Ellison. And then the admission they'd worked so hard for. The Queensland Health Officer breached patient confidentiality.
That's why Mr Lockwood has received a very sincere apology from the Director-General of Queensland Health.
In her letter to the Lockwoods, Ms Schreiber points out that the practice of releasing patients' confidential medical records without their knowledge has been in place since 1998. And while that practice is now being reviewed, the Minister doesn't know how many times it's happened.
I'm confident that this would be a very rare occurrence. This is a particular...
But how do you know unless you ask?
It's been my experience that Queensland Health takes its confidentiality responsibilities very, very, very seriously.
A Queensland man whose medical records were illegally handed out by the state's health service has demanded an investigation into the affair. Premier Anna Bligh today ruled that out, saying an apology is good enough.
Peter Lockwood fought the Health Department for 2 years before the Director-General eventually said sorry for releasing his medical files without permission.
They made a mistake, they fixed it, and they've apologised. I don't think people can expect more than that.
Mr Lockwood certainly does.
And let there be an inquiry to find out exactly how many other innocent people have had their files illegally taken.
The Premier isn't interested.
I don't believe there's anything at this stage that would indicate we need one.
Health Minister Stephen Robertson says the rules governing patient records will be tightened. Mr Robertson doesn't know and says he hasn't even asked his department if any other patients' confidential medical records have been released without their permission.
I would be confident nonetheless that this would be a very rare occurrence.
My Minister for Health is someone who's across a lot of detail and he could certainly get that information if it was required.
It would take some time to gather the statistics.
I find it hard to believe that this is an isolated incident.
No disciplinary action will be taken against the Freedom of Information officer who illegally gave Mr Lockwood's records to law firm Minter Ellison.
I believe did so in good faith, albeit mistaken belief that he was entitled to do so.
Nothing's being hidden here. In fact, what Queensland Health is doing is being very upfront, very open and very honest.